Good morning, everybody. 8:30 a.m. on May 18th, 2023. The good old Ask Me Anything, the Thursday Ask Me Anything. As always, I've got the questions called up. Some really great questions today, some fun questions that we'll dive into on a variety of topics. There's a fair amount of them, but I'm going to try to not get lost in too many rabbit holes and cover as many questions as humanly possible. So, with that being said, we'll kick it off. Let's see. Well, before I get into these questions, I can answer real quick. Melanie asking for a friend, will Test 9 be programmed for next weekend? So yes, the monthly Linchpin test is happening real soon here. And let me call up my calendar. So today is the 18th. On Monday, which will be the 22nd, Test 9 registration should go live. So you should be able to sign up for the test and whatnot. And then the 4-day window to submit your scores will be Friday through Monday as usual. And so that'll be Friday the 26th through Monday the 29th. And then you'll be good to go. So yeah, I should, as I normally do, I'll make a video with all the different information, and probably on Monday when registration opens, and I'll post that as well. Let's see, I don't think I lied to you about anything there. I don't think so. Oh, and I did just get in the mail yesterday the swag for Test 9. Test 9's not a laughing matter, okay? So I have to come up today with the wildcard option and the scaled option and the dumbbell option, but Test 9 as is. Let me go to the CrossFit Linchpin website right now. Bang. And then we go to workouts. And then we go to the tests. And Test 9. Whew, the barbell is loaded to 225 pounds for men and 155 pounds for women. My apologies. Okay, this is absurd. Linchpin Test 9 is 5 rounds for time of a 50-foot handstand walk and 5 squat cleans at that weight that I just mentioned. Right. So, I believe for the wild card and the scaled options, I'm going to take the handstand walk just out of there completely and give it, you'll always have the option to do it if you want, but I might make the wild card and scaled something that darn near anybody can do, even if it's just push-ups or something like that. And then the wild card and scale will reduce the loading on that squat clean for sure. But Test 9's a beast. But we'll give you the prescribed wild card and scale and dumbbell to hopefully make it as approachable for as many people as possible. I took some liberties with the Test 9 shirt because I wanted just to make a shirt, quite frankly, that I wanted to make, that I thought people would like, even though it doesn't have a squat clean or a handstand walk, and I just liked the shirt. I took a design from the Monster Mash and made it a little bit different. So we're gonna go with a nice, like, forest green shirt. I think this is forest green, I don't know. But then it just has scaling is cool on it, because I figured there's gonna be a ton of scaling on Test 9. And then you have a woman doing a split jerk there with the barbell overhead, and then a gentleman sprinting and a gentleman locked out on the rings, and with the cross barbells and a linchpin there in the middle. So that's just a cool shirt as far as I'm concerned, whatever test it is. And then as always, it'll say the month, the year, and have everyone's names on the back that do it. So I think that'll be a great shirt. And then there's always a second piece of swag. Just to make something fun, I decided, again, stickers are always a hit. So we've got a few different stickers that'll be in a sticker pack. The first one says, "This sucks. See you tomorrow." The second one says, "The answer is squat." And then the third one says, "Everything hurts and I'm dying." So that should be just about that. So good stuff. Okay, here we go. Let's see. All right, so we shall go. Let's see, somebody chimed in here. Somebody chimed in. Ghetto 8 Lasser. Not a question, just a comment. I've been CrossFitting since 2012, and you've been amazingly consistent with the methodology despite the company's ups and downs. Thank you. Hey, My pleasure. Thank you. And what's funny is, there are some things that we do. I'm already on a tangent. Some things we do different at Linchpin that are not in keeping with classic CrossFit methodology that you would hear from .com or in the CrossFit journals. Like, there are just some things that over the years I have felt better help everybody's experiences, such as the not for time days and things like that. We do a fair amount more percentage-based movements, things of that nature. The set schedule that we have with Thursdays and Sundays off, and there's certainly a handful of other things, but we do what works. That's the end of it. We do what works. So, okay, let's see. All right, let's get to the questions. So, number one, most upvoted. This is from Nasos, our friend over there in Greece. He says, "What do you think is the secret of this group, of the Linchpin? What made Linchpin so successful? I've been a member for 5 years, and I really believe this community is unreal. P.S. We should do a European Linchpin meetup in Greece next summer." I would love to take my family to Greece. I'm sure that the photos you see on Instagram are from some of the most beautiful pieces of parts of Greece, but wow, there's some spectacular coastlines and things there. It's a great question, and people had a ton of comments on his question there, and a lot of kind words being thrown my way. That's great. I'm a human, so obviously hearing kind words about myself makes me feel good. So yes, I appreciate that. And sure, I've been in various leadership positions darn near my entire life, from the military to almost every occupation that I've been in. I've been in charge of leading some group. So I've got a lot of lessons learned from all of those, to say the least. And I've been blessed and fortunate to have some really excellent leaders in my life that I could model the behavior that they did. And the converse is also true. I have had some really bad leaders, really bad. And that's just a whole nother topic right there. So all of that stuff is played in. But, and I keep saying this and I mean it, I really do think the secret of Linchpin is all of you. It really is. I truly believe that. And I think the way that Linchpin started and began, which wasn't my devious plan to create some business that I could take care of my family with. Like, that was never, ever, ever some grand plan that I had. And I think that's probably why it actually worked out, because that was never the intention. The intention, and when Linchpin started, was just to tell the truth in fitness, tell the truth in strength and conditioning, period, end of story, and tell the truth in life. Like, whatever it is, just tell the truth, whether people wanted to hear it or didn't want to hear it. Put out there what works, and with no interests that are aligned with something else, not having to push some product, some sponsorship, some shoe brand, some knee sleeve, some whatever, like, just what works. Someplace that people can go free of all that corporate malarkey, that they know they're just getting the unfettered truth, unfiltered truth. Unfettered may also work as well. So, when CrossFit Linchpin started, that's it. I just posted a workout each day. And it's really what we do to this day. Just post one workout each day. Zero flash in any way, shape, or form. I've said it before. Black font on a gray background. You cannot... Instagram is like this visually appealing media. You can't put out a more boring photograph than I do on Linchpin every day. It would be tough to do. And so my point being, with no fancy media, no influencers, no search engine optimization, no half-naked athletes, I have no advertising budget, like none of that stuff at all. It was going to live or die on the content, on the workout, period, end of story. And it was posted just for the world to see. And that was it. Now, I knew that it worked, but I didn't know if it would be warmly received or whatever it was. But I had no further plans other than that. And it just kept growing. That was, again, had no clue where it would go. It just kept growing. People from all around the world were drawn to it, shared it with their families and friends. And then as that happened and the community grew, I started getting requests from the community for various things in addition to the workout of the day. And I listened, and not all of them made sense, but a lot of them did make sense. And the ones that made sense, got implemented. I mean, little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit over the course of weeks, months, and years until we got to where we are right now. And then, the private track got created and all this other content, and the private Facebook group came about from, Nick's recommendation as well. And it's fun. I mean, just again, I think all of it, if I tried to lay it out and orchestrate it, it never would have worked out that way. It was just truly, as much as this is a buzzword and I hate it, it truly was just organic, and it just happened on its own, and it did become a community thing. And I think that's what makes Linchpin, it really is what makes Linchpin different. And that's obviously why the question was asked. There's a lot of bad programming out there, but there's some good programming too. So you can find a workout, if you wanted to, and you could, figure out ways to warm up and, maybe piece together with some accessory work. Could be like, there are places that you can go for that, and Linchpin is one of several. And people go with whatever reason, they connect with a certain community, or they connect with it for some reason and it resonates with them. But programming, warm-ups, accessories, like all that aside, that I'll put our community up against anybody. I'll put our programming up against anybody too. But our community, period, end of story. I mean, we've had people who have left Linchpin because, every now and then you get a little bored, things can be transitory in nature, you check something else out. We've had so many people, what's cool is that somebody leaves and they come back and they go, I wasn't quite sure, this is my first experience somewhere, I didn't know if it was great somewhere else too, and they go somewhere and they're like, I'm back. This is fantastic. This community is amazing. Like, you got me. Like, that's a really cool testimonial right there. So we do have something pretty special going on. And I also think the educational component is a really big deal. Like, yeah, I'm going to give you all the information, but the longer that you stay around in Linchpin and you listen to the Linchpin Conversations and the Ask Me Anythings and you watch the daily videos, your strength and conditioning knowledge skyrockets week after week after week after week, almost like no other place that I'm aware of, quite frankly. And then that gives you confidence to walk into the gym and know what you need to do. And if you have confidence and you understand why you're doing something, and you're in an amazing supportive community that is united in this fitness journey to help each other, well, then you're going to be more consistent. You're going to walk into the gym more regularly. And if you're doing good programming and all these things go together, things are going to go in a really positive direction. And so it's all contagious in a very good way. So yeah, that's it. All of you are pretty darn awesome. So let's see. And I also just think we got really I don't know. I mean, the people are ridiculously awesome. So here we go. And speaking about meetups, I still do plan on going to the Rogue Invitational this year in Texas. So I hope as many Linchpin people as possible head out there for the Rogue Invitational. It'd be pretty cool. Next most upvoted question is from Adrian S., our friend down in Mexico. Adrian, where are you? Okay. You probably have already answered this, but it's a two-part question. One makes the other. First, how do you come up with the times for the Super Fitness Robot and the more likely times for the workouts? I'm intrigued. What's the thought process to come up with those times? And the second one is, how often do you go, whoops, I misjudged that one. So let's see. Great question. So coming up with the more likely time and the Super Fitness Robot time, and that's again something that wasn't around years ago, it's been an evolution. That, well, first of all, I've got some Google Docs that have like every single movement that we do, from weightlifting to monostructural, like rowing, biking, running, whatever it happens to be, to body weight movements. I mean, everything that you can think of, from a regular burpee to a bar facing burpee to a burpee box jump over, from a toes to bar, what's the time it takes for a toes to bar versus the time for a knees to elbows versus a V up versus a hollow rock versus a GHD sit up versus an ab mat sit up. On average, right? I spent a ton of time moving in those movements for a set number of repetitions and taking the time over and over and over again to get averages. And so I have a huge list with those averages. Now, those averages are useful, but you can't just say, okay, We're doing, DT, deadlifts, hang power cleans, and push jerks, all right? 12 deadlifts take this long, 7 hang power cleans. What am I doing here? 12, 9, 6. 12 deadlifts take this, 9 hang power cleans take this, 6 push jerks take this, for example. You can't just add those 3 times together, get 1 round, and then multiply it by 5 and say that's how fast somebody's going to do it. That's where the lessons learned, the experience factor comes in, to realize that even though you have those averages and they're very useful, there's a huge discrepancy depending upon what the workout is, if it's short, medium, or long, and whether the movements that are in there have intentional interference, if they're complementary to one another, and some things are just different. So if you added up the movements that I just said right there at not like a blistering pace, okay, because nobody keeps a blistering pace the entire time, but if you're moving at a steady, consistent pace on deads, a steady, consistent pace on hang power cleans, and the same on push jerks, if you took those times for the reps per 1 round and multiplied it by 5, you would probably get a time, this is off the top of my head, that comes out to about 5 minutes. And so that's if a human who had gears 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as if you were a car, you just put them in 3rd gear, this moderate gear, and like a metronome or like a piston, they just never stopped. They moved at a moderate, consistent pace from deadlift to hang power clean to push jerk. Drop the bar, started round 2, finished round 2. Drop the bar, started round 3. That's what just adding up all the times will get you. That is not how it goes for most people. Truth be told, on a workout like DT, once you get that time that I just said, you're probably going to do yourself a favor by doubling it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, and now you have a much more realistic time frame as to where most people are going to fall. A little bit quicker than that will probably be a super fitness robot time. A little bit faster than that, a little bit slower than that will probably be a more likely time, and that window gives you a range. But that just comes with experience, and I've been doing CrossFit since 2005, and not casually just doing CrossFit, like going into the garage, doing a workout, and going home. Like, it's been my full-time gig, obsession, studying every nuance, everything. And so from 2005 to now, like 18 years of that study has yielded a database of movements and time domains and things like that, and then a bit of an understanding as to how the interplay happens in real life in a human body from a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level athlete. And then when you take those just times that I said that you add up, and then it also depends on whether the workout is short, medium, or long. How is the loading in the workout? How's the interference in the workout? And is it all barbell work? Is it mixed modalities such as barbell and engine and gymnastics? Because on something like a DT that I just said right there, where it's all barbell, it would make sense to double the time from just adding it up, okay? And getting from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. But now if you take a workout like Nancy, for example, that has 5 rounds for time of a 400-meter run and then 15 overhead squats per round, contrast that with DT, whereas DT, if you watch somebody, an intermediate level athlete, a middle of the road athlete do DT, they would almost be working as often as they're resting, because DT is really hard and most of us aren't machines. And so you do some deads, you drop the barbell, you shake it out for a bit, you do some hang power cleans, you get to hang power clean number 8, you drop the barbell, shake it out, take a breather, pick it up, get in the front rack position, you complete that hang power clean, you do your 6 push jerks, that was really hard, you drop the barbell, you have your hands on your hips for longer than you think. And over the course of the workout, in DT, for a lot of people, there's almost a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. And if there wasn't, it'd be a 5-minute workout. But most of us, it's going to be about a 10-minute workout because you're working almost as much as you're resting. Now, you contrast that with something like Nancy. Again, 5 rounds for time, 400-meter run, 15 overhead squats. You wouldn't double the time on Nancy. So if you went to the list of average times, for example, average 400-meter run, gotcha, it's this long. Average time for an overhead squat is this at this particular loading, 15 reps means it's going to be this long. Okay, that's what 1 round takes, times 5. There's our time. Okay, well now if we use the DT model, we would double that, and that would be a good time that Nancy would take most people. But that doesn't work on something like Nancy, because while there might be this pause from the time you finish the run till you pick up the overhead squat, you do the overhead squats, maybe you drop the barbell once, and you take off on the trot again, doubling it doesn't work, because if, let's just say on average, that a 400 meter run in a multi-round workout, not in a 6x400 meter run sort of an effort, which would be a different time, but a 400 meter run in a Nancy sort of situation, a continuous movement situation, let's say that you're going to say an average time is 2 minutes. Some people will be slower, some people will be faster, but on average, well now when you get that time by just adding up the numbers, if you doubled it, that would take that average 2 minute 400 to 4 minutes per 400. That's going to make the goal time way too long, way too high. That's going to be unrealistic. So doubling it on something like Nancy doesn't make sense. So again, it just depends. And it depends if it's chin over bar pull-ups versus chest to bar pull-ups. Strict pull-ups are really tough to get a timeline for, things of that nature. So this is sorry, I just went into a bit of a rant. But point being, you see the goal times there. There is a huge amount of time, thought, work, and effort that has gone on to the backside data to help provide accurate goal times. And yeah, the overwhelming majority of the time, they're right where they should be. Overwhelming majority of the time. Every now and then, I'm like, you know what? And it's usually not off wildly, but every now and then I'll be like, yeah, I made the super fitness robot time a bit too lenient. Yeah, it should have been a bit more of a higher bar to reach. Or, you know what? We should have made the more likely time a little bit longer, but not by much. But that's rare. The overwhelming majority of the time works out really, really well. I did that for years and years and years. And I will tell you right now, I have given that responsibility, access to that data, to those docs and whatnot, to your friend and mine from Italy, Matteo P. So Matteo handles the goal times. And so if you have you can razz him if you want in the private Facebook group or the BTWB squads, if you think that a goal time should have been a little bit different. That's Matteo right now. He's helped me out with that, which is fantastic. And before that was passed off to him, which happened several months ago, he and I had many, many Zoom calls, and we would go through workouts of various time domains, loadings, rep ranges. Is it a chipper style? Is it a intentional interval? Is it whatever it happens to be? What's the intended stimulus? What should the super fitness robot be? What should the more likely be? And we just went over and over and over. And I'm here to tell you, he's fantastic and takes it profoundly seriously. And he's a big help. And so he allows me to really just do where I think my time is served really well, which is focus on like the programming and making sure I get the programming dialed in 100%. Managing the community, doing these AMAs, things of that nature. And then, he's a tremendous help with some backside support, creating goal times and things like that. So shout out to Matteo, he's fantastic. Okay, good question. Next most upvoted one, this is an interesting one. Okay, from Christopher P. Hobbies, what are my hobbies and interests outside of anything fitness related? So this is a good one. Basically all the stuff that we don't talk about in the private Facebook group or the BTWB squads feature, which is, those areas are protected spaces where it's strength and conditioning, it's fitness, it's health, it's helping with compliance, it's helping with, keeping you on track with your nutrition, that good stuff. And we tune out a lot of the noise of the world because there's plenty of places you can go to get noise in the world. So we protect our environment to exclude that noise. But a lot of the noise I find fascinating, quite frankly. So to answer your question, Christopher, in general, I find like really big, complex, hot button, polarizing topics, problems, or issues really fascinating. I find big problems or big issues fascinating. So I'm talking the economy, financial markets, immigration, gun control, drug policies, the educational system, world religions, scientific debate, personal freedom issues. I think they're fascinating. They're fascinating because they're usually so complex and so nuanced and so important to everybody, and trying to figure them out and dig into them, they just make my mind work and like smoke come out of my ears. And I find when I can find somebody, talking to somebody that I agree about on any of these topics is relatively boring. But when you find somebody that has a different perspective on them, and that other person is actually mature, I know it's tough to find that person, but they're mature, and they realize because you might think differently on one of these topics doesn't mean that you're a bad person, doesn't mean that you're their enemy. It just means that for whatever reason, based upon where you're from, what you've read, what you've experienced, whatever, it's led you to view something in a different way. And these two people can actually have a discussion on this topic and not try to convince each other why the other one's wrong. That's not having a discussion. That's all some people try to do when they talk. They're not really talking. They're talking at the person, and they're trying to win, and they're trying to change the other person's mind. But when you find somebody that you can talk about one of these big topics with and actually have a discussion where instead of trying to change the other person's mind, you go in with a truly open heart and open ears and an open mind to try to understand why the person sees something different. That's your only goal, not to change their opinion, but to understand or develop a better understanding as to why they have the view that they do. I absolutely adore those conversations, and I can't get them. I can't get enough of them. They're fantastic. It'd be like my dream to have one of those every day over a cup of coffee. And so I just really enjoy listening to podcasts and other discussions, like long form discussions, because you can't dive into a really big topic in a 90-second news clip or a 30-second news clip on whatever your favorite big news station is. Nothing of worthwhile, in my opinion, gets covered there because they don't have the time or the format. Or they've got sponsors that interfere with something, that you have to go to a podcast where somebody can just actually have a real conversation. It takes as long as it takes. You hear all the viewpoints, and then at the end, you're allowed to make your own mind up. That's what I absolutely adore outside of fitness. So, okay, let's see. Next most upvoted question, dropping the barbell on heavy days, from Lisa D. So Lisa says, question about dropping the bar on heavy days between reps when the movement allows. This came up for me because I got a 20-pound PR on last week's 5-rep power cleans. You've talked about how dropping the bar between reps on heavy barbell movements is okay. It's also okay to hold on. Is there a benefit to focusing on not dropping the bar? I've always held on to the bar for dear life during sets that included multiple reps, but wow. Things felt a lot easier and a lot better when I dropped it. I always indicate in the notes in the BTWB app whether I dropped the bar or not. Does one make a difference for strength? Am I challenging myself in one way or shortchanging myself, etc., etc.? So, yes, and I think you're on the right track. So what I would say, here's my overly simplified recommendation for that. And we're talking, let's say it's a 5x5 power clean day for a heavy day. If you can hold on to the bar and do something like that as touch and go reps, then that's what I would recommend. But when I say if you can, I just don't mean you have the physical capacity. I mean, you not only have the physical capacity and the athletic ability, but it feels good on your body. It does not hurt your back, knees, shoulders, whatever it happens to be. It feels okay for you. Then, by all means, hold on. Now, if at a certain loading that changes, feel free to go to singles. Now, if you've done something to your body, you've lived a little bit of a harder life, and cycling a barbell in that sort of a manner on a heavy day for like 5x5 power clean doesn't feel good, but you can drop the barbell from the front rack position every time, reset and pull again as 5 quick singles, and that causes you to have a challenging yet pain-free in your joints heavy day, then that is 100% the right decision for you. Pain-free is the way to be. But if you're asking, hey, I can do either one and either one's great for me, then I would recommend you hold on to it, because you are certainly going to have your body under tension more time than not compared to dropping it from the top every time, and that is going to tax you more. And, pardon me, when the day comes that you get a little fatigued, you get whatever it happens to be, if you're used to holding on to it, then you can always go to quick singles, which 99 times out of 100, yes, are going to feel a little bit easier and allow you to keep moving. If you're always doing quick singles, when you don't have a plan B to go to, if that makes sense. So that would be my overly simplified recommendation there. And you're right, there are, both are going to get you strong. Both are going to work just fine. Neither one's going to shortchange you. And the touch and go every time, yep, it does keep your body under tension the whole time, for sure. That has some benefits. And then the quick singles every time, well, there's an argument to be made that since you're actually releasing tension, then what you need to do down at the bottom is re-grip and set every time for another pull, which is also challenging in a different way. It's the difference between doing, a 5-rep deadlift in which you never let go of the bar versus a 5-rep deadlift that's a dead stop where you release tension and you regain tension every time. Now, in that sort of a lift, one heck of an argument could be made that the not doing them touch and go, doing the quote-unquote singles, so to speak, where you do dead stop and you reset and regain tension, is way harder than holding on to the bar. So a little bit of it depends upon the lift as well. But in general, those would be my thoughts on that. Okay, let's see. All right, how are we doing on time? You all tricked me into going down a couple rabbit holes, so my apologies. But we get a little bit more time, right? It's been about 35 minutes, and we can hold on a bit more. This one is from Eric CM. Eric, where are you, kind sir? Here we go. This is about basically when do you start to plateau or maybe even lose some fitness. Granted, every individual is unique. You just answered your own question. Granted, every individual is unique, but on average, at what age does fitness performance peak and at what age does it start to decline? I wonder why professional athletes from all kinds of sports are considered old and retire around 35 years old, which casually is my age. Am I a master athlete now? I still feel so young. Will my fitness start to decline? Okay, so you nailed it. Every individual is different. And I know that's such an unsatisfying answer that sounds like a cop-out, but it is not. It's actually true. And the more things to think about that is every athlete is a little bit different because all of your backstory matters. Are you 35 years old and you've been working out since you were 15, you've got 20 years of strength and conditioning under your belt, and you've always been a relatively high-level athlete, played some D1 sports and whatnot, like there's a really good chance after 2 decades of that sort of behavior that you may have peaked. I mean, you've been at it forever doing great stuff, competed at the D1 level, that you might be in that, you still get PRs, don't get me wrong, but they happen less frequently, and what you're trying to do is maintain, and you might be in that plateau for a long time, and then in the coming years, there might be some numbers that you don't hit again. That could be you. Or you could be 35 years old, relatively sedentary your entire life, not really athletic, got into CrossFit and everything when you were 33 years old, only 2 years ago. Well, that's a different 35-year-old, because you have so much runway ahead of you. You're going to be PRing and improving for a long time. So those two 35-year-olds aren't the same. So that is why it does depend a bit on the individual. But relatively speaking, if I'm getting your question, relatively speaking, I see a lot of people that are in their late 30s and still advancing. I see a ton of people. So most of what I see does not lead me to believe that you have to be in your late 30s and think that your best days are behind you. Okay, that's generally speaking. Okay, we're talking mixed modality workouts like CrossFit, where you're working on your engine, you're working on your strength, and you're working on your body weight, your gymnastics ability. And a lot of people, as far as like conditioning goes, with longer runs and things like that, you're still good to go in your late 30s and early 40s. And we're still having people that are making excellent strength gains as well. And so I don't think you have to hang your hat up quite yet. So I see plenty of people still advancing in their late 30s. And again, if you're asking me, like trying to nail me down on when does it happen, I would say when you are in the mid 40s sort of an area. This is as a general, okay, this might not apply to everybody. But in the mid 40s, I do start to see a lot more people entering that plateau sort of an area. And that's not plateau in a negative phrase. That just means you're at that phase where you've been at it for a really long time and you're trying to just hold on to as much gains, as much fitness as you possibly can for as long as you can. You're still going to get PRs. They're going to occur. But if you're 45, you've been working out since you're 15, that's 30 years of strength and conditioning. Okay? And it just it is what it is. I just saw somebody say, I'm 58 years old here, please tell me it's not over. And it's certainly not, because what I would also say is, and Adrian and I actually discussed this on a Varied Not Random, and it's one of the wonders of variance. If you're only doing a handful of lifts, there's a chance that you might plateau. But if you're exposing yourself to 50 different things, there's a really good chance that you still have some area of adaptation and development for many years to come. And it's a lot of the stuff that maybe you've put to the side and wasn't, sexy or flashy, and now you know what? How's your press to handstand? It's a really good chance that a lot of people don't have a press to handstand. There's a lot of good chance you could start pursuing that. It might take you a year or more to get it, depending on where you're starting from. And when you get it, guess what? That's a brand new PR. Or unbroken double unders, or strict pull-ups, or a 1 rep max weighted pull-up, or your 5K, your 400, like your L-sit, like whatever it happens to be. There's things that you can do to push that window out. And here's the other really cool thing that we've mentioned before. Let's say that you're like, you know what? You're right. I've never even tried a press to handstand. That's going to be my new goal. I'm going to get after it a few times a week. I'm going to get these practice sessions, and I'm going to get a press to handstand no matter how long it takes. Well, here's the thing. You are now going to do something which is, it's gymnastic, and you're moving your midline, and you're rotating your shoulders, and you're pressing, we do that in other areas, but you're doing it in a unique and different way with a press to handstand that I guarantee, if you have not been practicing it, is now going to strengthen you in some little area that's been neglected that you were not even aware of. Could be your midline, could be your lats, could be your shoulders, could be your triceps, could be your central nervous system with your coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance, could be whatever. And that one thing that you're doing is now going to help out 3 or 4 or 5 other things, and you might get a new PR in something else because you worked on your press to handstand. That's the really cool part about variance. And that's why if you're open to it and you're still young at heart, you can make gains in as many areas as you want for as long as you want. It's just it is what it is. Okay. 2 more questions? Yeah, I'm going to see if I can try to get to them. We're putting in some hours here. This is good. This one's a quick one. This is from Bruno C. This is from the BTWB Squads feature. It says, how and when can I start getting my kids involved in at-home physical training? Fantastic question. Here's what I recommend for you. Adrian and I did an episode of Varied Not Random on this exact topic and brought in a subject matter expert on it, Todd Widman, who is awesome. Todd Widman is an OG, stand-up guy, fantastic human being. So go check out Varied Not Random, episode number 77. It's entitled How to Train Kids. You'll be good to go. Okay, and final, most upvoted question is from Eric M. Where is it here? Here we go. Eric M. Okay. Eric says, hey Pat, when and how much time should we take off from CrossFit assuming no injuries? So that's not why you're taking something off. You don't have an injury. Does it make sense to take off an entire week with no lifting after a few months? Should we do a week where we just do the daily workouts but super scaled down as though it's an active recovery week? Excellent question. There is no right answer. So a lot of times in like if you're just lifting in like some sort of progressive overload style training, you're going to have this deload week every now and then, which makes sense because you're just under the strain of the barbell non-stop. So it makes sense. I mean, that's not a lot of variance in your training. Then it makes sense that you're worn down and every now and then you need to take yourself a week off. I'm of the opinion that first of all, life in general tends to give you an easy week every now and then. It just, work gets crazy, kids get crazy, schedules get crazy, whatever gets crazy, and you just have to do a lot of like little short workouts, or you miss some days, or things are rushed, and it just works itself in for a lot of people. Okay, so that's option one. Option two is, I guess my short answer should be, if you feel like you need a week off, take it. There's my simplest, easiest answer, and it doesn't have to be on a set schedule. As often as you feel you need to do that to keep yourself sharp mentally, physically, and emotionally, take that week off. And take it off completely, or just do scaled down light workouts. Either one's totally fine. But what I will say is, I'm also of the opinion that if you're actually, most people, if you're doing what we're saying we're recommending, you'd be shocked at how frequently you don't need to take this full week. Again, if you feel like you need it, do it. But since we're not living under a heavy barbell every single day, you're not beat up like that. So you get some breaks. And through the wonders of variance, where we're going to have days that are light, moderate, and heavy, and then of mission critical importance, we're going to have days where there's no loading on our body whatsoever. That's huge. And then we're actually going to say, you know what? Thursdays and Sundays are rest days, and you should take them. Being a hero and training just nonstop is not a good call. More is not better. And then, also as part of the private track, every Friday, I put out a video about modulating intensity. So here's the other thing that we spoke about early in the podcast of, I've been in this CrossFit game for a long time, and there are some things that we do a little bit different at Linchpin because the results have proven that they work. Well, another thing that we do, which is rather unique, is that modulating intensity and being very open and honest about that. So always being under constant loading can wear you down, make you feel like you need a deload week. But the other knob that you can turn is the intensity component. And so you should not go high intensity every day, every workout. I truly believe that is not the right protocol for people, and you will burn out and need that break. You should allow yourself low intensity days. I know that can be like anti-classic CrossFit. I'm here to tell you, low intensity days have their place and they're important. Moderate intensity days have their place and they're important. And then if you do both low and moderate intensity days, guess what that allows you to do? Actually be ready for a high intensity day and bring the heat, because you haven't just been trying to burn it down every workout, every day, over and over. And so that modulation of intensity is critical. And then we're not under heavy weights every single solitary day. We respect the heavy days. We have light days. And all of those things together, taking rest days, are a big deal. And then other things that we do at Linchpin, the not for time days. I think we kind of got the world hopefully hooked on that as well. Not for time days are great. Don't run the clock. I understand that running the clock is classic CrossFit. I understand the importance of measurement. I understand that. But I'm here to tell you that not running the clock at least once a week is how you're going to most likely work out for decades and not burn out. And then on top of not for time, so there's for time workouts, there's not for time workouts, which are known as NFTs, not non-fungible tokens, but NFTs, not for time. And then KFT, kinda for time, which is also another great one, which means, yeah, the clock's running, and I'll note down what my time was, but I didn't let the clock push my pace. Kinda for time is another great way to do it. And doing the not for time, doing the kinda for time, modulating your intensity, not feeling the need to lift heavy every day of your week, taking the rest days, that actually allows you to go high intensity every now and then without burning out, without hitting a wall, and feeling good. And all those things combined together with a great community drive results forward. So hopefully that helps. So that's it. Okay, covered a lot of stuff. That was good. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Today's a rest day. I will most certainly be taking it. I'm going to come up right now with the Test 9 wildcard scaled and dumbbell options, and we'll talk later.